So, morning or evening or whatever times you're watching the recording. Never know what time people check in with the recordings. Let's start off with this little regular tapping exercise, massaging exercise that we do as a way of warming the body up, but also bringing our attention into our body. So, rubbing your hands together, and then with a light but rapid movement, tapping over your face, cheeks, lips, forehead, back towards your jaw. And then working up, I use the palms of my hands here, working over my head and down to my neck. Down to the shoulder, probably a little bit stronger on the shoulder, but the strength of these is self-regulating. I think you'll know the right amount to apply pressure. And the inside up the outside of your arm, just aware of the vibration in the muscles and your fingers as you tap your arm on the other side. And then onto your back, as much of your back as you can comfortably get to with one hand or with both hands or alternating, so it's more comfortable for you. Around your hips. And then down your legs, down the outside, up the inside. And then lightly on your belly and up to the upper part of your chest. A bit stronger than the so that exercise can be lengthened. You can do it for much longer than that. You can do it in any order. You can doesn't really matter. I just do it in a particular way because that's how I remember it and I do it. And then just let your hips drop back a little bit and turning in the center of your body. So thinking of this area primarily between your hips and your waist. Just imagine you've got some spotlight in your navel and you're trying to pan it around the room. Nothing is forced. So with that, we'll focus attention that hopefully the previous exercise has begun to develop for you. Just aware of how far you can move without straining. People with a bit more experience, we take this a bit further. We want to try and avoid this. You can see my knees going from side to side. So we're just trying to keep the knees pointing in the same direction as your toes, minimizing that sideways movement. There's factors involved in that, but the basic releasing in your hips, just this feeling of your hips dropping back very slightly, and that gives you a slight feeling of overhanging in lower back, hips, and buttocks. Well, it's caused a very slight curve in the knees. It's like you've just been out for a walk and you just rested your bottom on a wall or something like that. And that shaping your legs will actually help to maintain the alignment of your knees. Key thing with that, though, of course, is the sense of your center of gravity beginning to drop and reaching down. So try not to equate rooting down, this feeling internally of dropping and feeling your pelvis dropping, the center of gravity dropping, purely with a bend in the knees. It's the releasing in your hips that is, I feel, the key to this. Your knees do curve a little bit to accommodate that, so it's quite strong in the muscles of your legs, but it isn't inherently the case that the more you bend your knees, the better the root. So it's possible to root down in this higher stance, and arguably this is the more practical aspect of rooting down, because we don't walk down the road with our knees bent at 90 degrees or whatever. But we can see with walking down the road with this kind of softer releasing quality in hips and knees. So this is the foundation, the base, the root for the movement. And on that base, we turn. And in turning, we bring movement into the upper part of our body. You can feel movement in your ribs, in your sternum, your shoulders, and ultimately, of course, in your arms as well. So this is a good exercise to just reflect on this posture. And again, those of you familiar with this movement, hopefully you've got a sense that there are times when this can feel a very loose, light movement. There's no resistance to the movement. And if you don't feel that at the moment, that's not unusual. But we have a sense of where we're going to move to. So there's an intentionality here that you want to approach this feeling in the movement. And if you practice this enough, then one of the interesting things I think is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes in art like Tai Chi, having a memory of how a movement can feel, how it's felt in the past, albeit probably only for a few moments, can actually provide the stimulus for your body to naturally change, to allow that movement to be repeated, allow that feeling to be repeated. If that doesn't actually work for you, which sometimes it doesn't, then that's when we get a bit more technical about these things. Then we think about exactly where the knees are, where the hips are, and so on and so forth. With this clear quality of movement, a rhythm will appear in the rise. And that's a natural rhythm for your body, sense of resonance, sense of connection through the resonance and vibrations of the movement. This can help us to get the feeling of the whole body moving as one unit. And it's also perhaps a way in which we might understand this concept of the energy in the movement. And there are many forms of energetic reaction happening in your body the whole time. But this very kinetic energy, this movement, this vibration working through your body is one that we work with a great deal in Tai Chi. Perhaps the foundation for the whole art. Now just raising your arms a little bit. So your arms, they remain in front of your shoulders. It's your body that turns. Don't just pull your arms around. Kind of angled out slightly to open your chest a little bit. And then just now, put 1 foot forward, keep the width of your step. You can see the background between my legs there. Begin to just push your weight gently from 1 foot to another. Feel your center of your body beginning to turn. So this engages our legs, and that too becomes a rhythmic quality, your weight transferring forwards and backwards. So we have this completion of a formula that is often used in Tai Chi. Sounds very simplistic and it can be very subtle, but we're told that the movement is rooted in the feet. This is the awareness of our center of gravity dropping, the rooting down. It gives us both the physical stability and, as we'll see later, the impetus for the movement, that kinetic energy I was talking about. And then that is transmitted to our legs. Still, we can feel that very clearly with the weight moving. It's guided, directed, shaped through the centre of the body, that area between hips and waist, sometimes referred to as the lower down shin. But when we can feel that in a very basic sense. When we turn, it moves our arms, and so therefore the movement is expressed through our upper body and our arms. And that's a formula that we learn to apply to all the movements. Sometimes not as obvious as this, but I would say I've never really come across anything that doesn't benefit from the application of that form. And then the other side. So these are all reflections that we can bring into these opening movements that have also the effect, of course, of preparing our body, warming us up a little bit, encouraging blood and the energy to flow, muscles to soften up. And many of the kind of advantages you get from standard warm up in any kind of physical activity. And then, excuse me while I just got a drink. And the other aspect that applies to those exercises and all the way through, of course, is that all of these aspects encourage a gathering of our attention into the body. And this is one of the big benefits I feel of the art, that sense of stillness and calmness that comes with the awareness of posture. So once again, in the parallel stance, feet are hip width apart, directly below your hips. Try and bring your weight a little bit forwards. And again, this feeling of releasing, and by releasing, you can get a feeling for what that's like. If you hold a hand up and tighten a fist, grip tightly, it really makes me quite uncomfortable. I can feel it all the way up through my arm. We don't want to just drop the fist, we want to shake there. But what we can do, if you look at this area there, there's no space there. I can just ease off on the fingers a little bit, and there's now a space, and that transition from the tight grip to the more open fist will give you an idea of how releasing can feel. And once again, our intentionality can pick up on that, and you can imagine, if you like, the same thing happening in lower back, hips, and buttocks. And so when we bring the weight forward and apply that release into the hips, there's a subtle sense of just dropping down. Imagine a little ball tucked in behind each knee, a little ball hanging on the front of each hip. And this is a small but profound change in the body. And you'll find that it does impact on the muscles of your legs. Now, to the degree that which this is comfortable for your knees, so try not to have I've got to bend my knees this much. Just allow your hips to drop back, and as you do, feel how your pelvis adjusts, it tucks under slightly, and then you start to feel yourself being pushed up. Come up to that top position, don't lock your knees back, and then round. I mentioned earlier what I described as a kinetic energy. And I use that term to really spotlight this aspect of movement. As I said, there are many energetic reactions and processes in the body, not least of which is our breathing. But just thinking of this aspect of allowing gravity to draw our hips down, to yield to the pull of gravity, and then to feel the response from our legs on the ground beneath as a movement happens. This is a very fundamental cycle, that upward movement. The image is sometimes given of a block of wood. You get a block of wood, you push down into water, and you can feel the push up, and if you were to take your hand away, the wood will just bob up again. So that releasing in our hips that allows us to respond to the gravity by letting it pull our hips down, actually leads to this rising, expanding energy coming up to our legs, to our hips, to our belly, to our Now bring your hands around so they're creating the ball here. Notice the elbows are out. And the next time you push up, just let the expansion push your elbows away from your sides. That will draw your hands up. Turn over. Imagine the ball underneath your arms. So this exercise is called rooting down for obvious reasons. And it's a good opportunity just to reflect on what this means. The root gives a physical foundation for our body. And it also offers stability. The lower your center of gravity, the less weight you're carrying on your shoulders and back, the more stable you will be. The less weight carried on the shoulders and your back, the more space there is within the body. Like you've taken off a tight pair of shoes, suddenly feel as though you can move your toes around a bit. And also the root helps to draw our attention inwards and downwards, this grounding quality that is the source of the calmness of the mind, the gatheredness of our minds that we begin to experience. And through that calmness, we're able to observe what's happening in the body, and we realize there is this movement. And again, maybe a sense of rhythm begins. Just aware of how that rhythm opens up areas that may feel a bit tight or blocked, encouraging the feeling of movement of energy flowing in those areas. Once again, we may bring a sense of memory into that. Once again, we may need to be a bit more assertive about that. You say you've got a shoulder that's tight and it doesn't seem to be loosening to that. We should be asking the question, am I doing the right thing physically here? So it's not purely of the mind, we're working with three, what are sometimes referred to as three treasures. Our bodies, of course, mechanics and physicality of the movement. Our minds, our awareness of what's going on, and our ability to focus on intentions correctly. And the movement itself, the flow of the energy, working together through the movement. And your breathing just settle in. It may well just settle into a particular pattern associated with that rhythm in the movement, but nothing should be forced with your breathing. Nothing should be forced with anything. Keeping the same pattern in your hips and your legs as you come down, turning your fingers out and pushing up the wild goose. Again, people more familiar with these movements, that gathering of your attention can lead to a very subtle awareness of changes within the body, patterns of expansion and contraction. They may be the same as you've experienced before. There may be new patterns there for you to encompass. And the more we can bring a sense of intentionality to those patterns, the more we find that the movement is generated from within the body, outwards towards our arms, not ignoring our arms and our hands, but seeing them as exhibiting, if you like, the outcome of that build-up of patterns. For newer people, it's almost the reverse of that, I think. In the first instance, we feel the mechanics of the movement, the arms pushing out like this, producing those internal movements. Changing again, this time letting your hands come down. So in front to be push-ups is part of the effect. Notice also how the imagery impacts your body. As we change from one movement to another, and assuming the images work for us, which they won't always, but when they do work for us, we begin to have a sense of change within the body. I love this one. The image of the sun coming out from behind the clouds. That's sort of this opening up of the space, the lightning, the whole feel seems to work through my whole body with this one. And then letting your hands drop down to your sides, feeling the weight of your arms and focusing on one side of your body. Again, your elbow being pushed out this time, drawing your fingers up, wind around as though you're plucking something off a tree and pulling down, elbow leading back. Move your attention slowly to the opposite side. Do the same thing. This is the dragon plucks the stars. None of these movements involve a full stretch. Notice here, my elbow is still a little bit bent. We go to 80% to full movement. And one of the things that we're trying to cultivate here is that feeling of spaciousness within the body that allows for a freer movement. Again, nothing should be forced. So when we have that space, we can then again bring quality of intention to the movement, to those patterns within the body. But if those patterns are struggling to survive, you're having to fight your own body. It's much harder to do. So here, your arms should only go up to a height where you feel it's comfortable. So it's not a set height. Now do one more of these. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning. So the first of these exercises, rooting down, and do them in a little sequence. So this gives us a chance just to reflect on those changes from one movement to another within the body and where those changes come from. Mind and body and energy, all involved in this process. The hands drop down. And then dragon touch the starting from the start. Take your time. Hand come down to the full length. Bring your hands underneath and back to them. So my experience, the change from one movement to another, or indeed the change from one part of one movement to another, involves all three of these treasures. The change in the imagery, the memory of the movement, physical change, of course, change in the pattern of expansion and contraction. The general direction, if you like to think of it like that, is for the movements become more inwardly generated rather than outwardly generated. By that I mean we make a transition, a gradual transition of my experience from moving the arms deliberately and feeling the effect of that movement within our bodies to generating the effect through our intentionality through the physical movements within the body, which in their turn move the arms. Mind, body, and energy are all engaged in one way or another, mutually supporting each other. And the benefits of practice affect mind, body, and energy. One more round of this. And then just that. So sometimes it might be more appropriate to approach a particular movement from the physical side, sometimes more from the energetic side, sometimes more from the using the imagery or the understanding of the technicality of the movement. Depends on the movement and our experience of it. But again, the movement is towards it being an internal movement, and the movement is towards a point where these three elements that I've described separately actually no longer exist separately. They're just it's just a whole movement. But we have to recognise where we're starting from. So if you've got, I don't know, a bit of a pain in your knee or something like that, it isn't enough generally just to think, oh well, all I need to do is to kind of concentrate on the flow of energy and everything will be fine. We may need to look at the physical structure of our body. That might not be enough. We might we might need to think about using an image perhaps to help us, and so on and so forth. Tai Chi embraces all of these things, body, mind, and energy, inner and outer. And as we get to understand the movement better and our experience grows, then we develop an understanding of which at any particular point is the appropriate direction to take. So a really important element in Tai Chi is what I've described as this kinetic energy. And the foundation of that comes in this dropping down through, well, primarily through our hips, it's really the whole body, but focusing on the hips first of all, just simply allowing gravity to pull us down. And that downward movement automatically produces the upward. Imagine being in water and just allowing yourself to drop down in the water, and eventually the buoyancy of the water pushes you up. And we want this to be a constant in Tai Chi. We don't want to get into a fight with gravity. So we need a posture that's going to keep us in line with gravity. All the imagery in the world isn't going to help. If I'm standing here like this and I'm leaning back, I can find whatever image I like, and then I release in the hips and I'm going to fall over. So, again, the awareness that is generated through the calming, the quieting of our attention, when we're not distracted by other things, we can begin, oh, our shoulders are out of line, and then we can look at ways of bringing our shoulders back into line, and so on and so forth. Again, that's a fairly, in some ways, a crude example, but a very important one. We can not be victims simply to the pull of gravity. But when we do manage to get that alignment, it becomes a source of energy. So the next couple of exercises we'll focus just on this start. I'll come a bit closer to the camera. Not a deep posture and not up and down, but definitely a sense of this dropping, sitting into the hips, so that we've got the potential for this flow of movement through the body. Now, bring your hands to this center part of the body. This is important. Just rest here for a moment and get a sense for this band going around between hips and waist, pelvis and waist. It's this part of your body you want to drop towards. So we deliberately bring the focus of our attention. And so this part of the body from here and its journey down into the ground starts to become the place, if you like, where we bring our attention to for that quietness, for that spaciousness. And then bringing your hands around and push up a little bit, just a little bit above your head, no higher, and then back down. Notice the sensation of returning. Push your hands out to the sides, and as you do, turn in that center of the body so that you change the direction of your arms. Don't twist your back on it. And then once again, build the movement back to the center, back to the root. So in the other direction, notice how far you can turn without that sense of straining and back, and then pushing out and back. So 4 directions of movement. Upwards, and that lengthening through your back. And return. Pushing out and bring your back broadening, not tightening your back. And return. Then the other direction, so the outward movement is yang. The inward movement is yang. And finally, without turning, pushing out. So once again, we have this rhythm, have it very specifically applied to this expansion outwards, followed by traction. Notice whether there's a tendency to rush that inward stage. It's very common that to happen. We often undervalue it. But we're looking for a balanced rhythm, harmony between those two aspects. You need to recognize their interdependence. So we could think of the energy being produced through this yielding to the pull of gravity, and from that, the response of our body with the upward movement. And from that focused attention in the center of the body, we guide and shape them. Again, those of you with more experience in these exercises, and as you gain more experience in the exercises, one of the ways in which we use that connection between mind and body, specifically the center of the body, it's almost project an image, shape that you want the body to flow through. Obviously, some movements you will find that comes more easily than others. And again, you may well encounter physical barriers that you need to be aware of and you need to work with gently. Sometimes focusing on the quality of the movement can help to dissolve some of those barriers. Sometimes said in Tai Chi that it has a feeling of your body being gently massaged from within. And that can ease those areas of tightness, stiffness. I sometimes have the image of the movement flow being like a river flowing over a rock in the bed of the river and gradually eroding it away, smoothing it off. One more round. You may well notice that tendency to stiffen up increases as your arms go out. So again, don't move too far. But this is quite normal, natural thing. And so we may choose to focus on that being releasing more in that returning movement. Still maintaining this stance with your hips sinking backwards. This time, the expansion again on one side, pushing your arm out so it swings up slightly above your head and then down the center line of your body from nose to navel. Try not to stiffen up in your shoulder. It's called circling palms again, for obvious reasons. And then if it's comfortable for you, once again turning, drawing your arm across your body a little. Change sides. Notice any difference between one side and another? There often is this difference. And in turn, noting how this horizontal rotation in the center of our body has quite a profound effect, quite a dramatic effect sometimes on the movement, particularly the movement of our arms. Again, this is the center of the movement, the central focus of our attention. Now, go back to this active sinking down of your hips and feeling the push up. And this time, thinking not so much about the horizontal rotation, but the vertical rotation. So as you sink down, push your hips back, your pelvis tilts forwards. Be careful of your back and your knees. And just allow your hips to drop back and down. And notice how that brings your head upright and then push up. So look, the center of our body, our root, affect not only the sort of horizontal movements, but the vertical movements, the alignment of our body with the pull of gravity. We learn not to strain, not to struggle to come upright, but rather to use gravity, to allow gravity to pull on our hips, to bring us to the upright position. It's a smooth movement. Try not to stiffen up in your back, shoulders. And then let your arms follow. This is rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. As you extend out, just be aware this is a strong movement on the back. So don't overdo it. Just let the hips go back. With a gentle lengthening through your back, your spine, and your arms. I'm doing this quite big, so hopefully you can get an idea of the mechanics of the movement. But move as far as you're comfortable. And particularly newer people, don't dismiss the physicality of the movement. There's quite a lot of physical conditioning will take place if you practice these exercises. It's a very physical art. And then let your hands come to rest in front of your belly, palm down, turn horizontally, then you push your hips back, turn, careful with that turn, let your hips drop down, and turn back to the front. This is called polish and retain. So it's your hips dropping back, but ultimately send your hands forwards. Don't strain to reach out with your arm. Focus on what's happening in hips, buttocks. Exaggerate a little bit. Notice how they swing across very carefully with that movement. The body responding to that upper body expanding. And back to the center. Turning again. Polishing tail. And let the hand. So again, we can begin to recognize the significance of this central part of the body. We literally are centered in our thoughts are centered, grounded, it's dropping of that center of gravity to the ground, that central part of the body, seeming to want to sit on the ground. And with practice, we learn that we can bring our attention back there. So both the physical root and that sense of being settled in our attention become much more something that we can access in our daily lives. Now, from this parallel position, we're going to change the stance again, turn one foot out, step forwards with the other foot. Again, keeping the width of your step, about the same in length, so roughly square stance. And once again, begin to transfer your weight to the front back, giving yourself a moment, resting on each leg, releasing your hip and your knee, get that stronger sense of rooting down. And this time, the upward movement that we've used in the previous exercise is translated into horizontal movement. We begin to propel ourselves forwards and backwards through a process that starts with that releasing, that yielding to the gravity. It's almost like the movement comes up through the legs, again through the center of the body, and then drops down into the middle. So, very dynamic quality here, one that we learn to bring into our daily life. This weight transfer is a very important element in everyday walking. Being clear about where you want the weight to go, that focused attention, guiding the weight into my foot, not over there somewhere where I might find myself standing. Going to my back leg, and I'm going to raise my front toe, so more of my weight goes into the back leg, and then I go forwards. Now I've got the front foot slightly turned out, and my aim is to get to a point where my body is aligned over one leg. My head is above one foot. So I've got that alignment with the pull of gravity, bringing me down, rooting me down into one foot. And when I'm getting that step in and then back out. Put down Same thing on the other side. When I step back, I put the ball of the foot down, and then the heel. Now press gently into the floor. Back. When I the balls, it's the heel, then the toes, then the press down, and then the weight on it. This is referred to as planting the foot. Hips dropping back. So we learn not to balance, but to become more stable. And then on the other side, same thing. First of all, fixed step. If you find that you're quite wobbly, it's a difficult exercise. This one, it's not like normal stepping where we're constantly on the move. We're looking for that stability over one leg. We're looking to move slowly. And a lot depends on that yielding to the pull of gravity, that releasing, relaxing quality in certain areas of the body. That can be very difficult to do if you're feeling that you're about to fall over. So here, for instance, I've got my hand on the wall. That can give me a bit of support so I can better begin to understand that yielding process and begin to feel the stability that comes within that. Raising your toes and your heel. And I would recommend, even if you're quite experienced in this and you don't think you need to do that, it's always interesting to do this with a little bit of support, because we often don't always appreciate that we're still holding some time, we're still failing to get that sense of yield. So it's not just about whether you think you need it, you're worried about falling over or something like that, which is not unreasonable. But how far can we take this? Stepping in, planting the foot. Yielding to the pull of gravity. Taking time, settling in, don't rush this process. This time, step through either forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space. Take care where you plant the foot. Notice that I'm not sort of going mad dashing. We're not looking for speed or power or momentum here. I'm just taking the time. Yeah, am I in line with the foot? Are my hips sinking back? Sometimes there's a little wobble. And you'll change direction. When you do get that little bit of a wobble, see if you can bring back the memory when we were doing that hallway push, for instance, of how we're able to come back to the center, come back to the root. How did that feel in your shoulders and your back? That returning process is very important. And shake out. So it's lovely to be able to do this without any sense of wobbling. I think it's many ways it's more useful if you do wobble around sometimes, because that then helps you to train this ability to lose your center, to lose your root, to lose that sense of calmness, which we do all the time in our daily life, but to recognize that it's not lost forever, that we can come back to this. Now, have your left foot. Once again, bringing the upper body into the movement. So arms at your sides, move your weight into the front foot, and then just let your arms follow, swinging through. Going back and so don't let your arms lead the movement. Try and have your right foot forward so you're mirroring my movements. This is called fisherman cast and neck. One very common image that is used in Tai Chi is that we're moving through water. That image offers a sense of resistance. but not a resistance that we harden against. It encourages that softer releasing quality. And in its turn, it encourages both the flow of the movement, but also a stronger quality in that flow of the movement. So it's a very useful image. Some people just think in terms of the air around them being thicker than normal. A fisherman cast a net. Notice that there is always, in my experience, a tendency to want to do more with the arms. Remember, these movements are built from within and from below, rooted in the beak, transmitted through our legs. Aware of the patterns of expansion and contraction in the back and sides and the front. And this time, as you come back, turn towards the direction that you're of your back foot, and then go forward. So now drawing your arms across the body. Notice as you come back here, there's a bit of expansion in the left side of the body. And just let that build and push your hands up, come forwards, turn, hands naturally coming down. You guide them across your front hip, expanding in that right side of the body. This creates this double circle. We can imagine a figure of 8 in front of us, or some people like to imagine the infinity sign that we find used in mathematics and physics. And again, just letting your arms flow through that shape. So the energy comes initially from that sinking down and the push up. That is guided, directed through the center of your body as the center turns. And your intention is to create the figure of 8 shape. Expanding, contract, expanding. And the other foot forwards. Start with your weight back. So left foot in front. Fisherman casting net. This lovely exercise is very simple and gives us a chance to really take our attention inwardly and downward into our feet and our legs and our center. Feel how the movement, the energy is generated through our body. Feel the patterns of change, particularly in the upper part of the body. To recognize your weight is moving forwards and backwards, your center space and therefore your arms are swinging forwards. Change when it comes will be one thing. It will be a turning in the center of your body. So this time, as you come back, you simply turn the center, your hips, your waist towards the right, and then you go forwards and you turn towards and back, turning towards the right, feeling that expansion beginning in the right side of your body, pushing your arms up like a wave coming underneath. Turning, expanding, and we learn to combine this with the stepping that we did earlier. Then this time I'm going to go forward, but if it's easier for you to go backwards, that's fine. I turn my front foot out. That means I can turn perhaps a little bit further. And that movement, my right hip coming forwards, and my left hip actually, but bringing the knee up, bringing the foot in, I plant the foot, go forwards, my foot again, slightly turned out, letting the hip come around, coming in, stepping first and then moving the weight. Maybe I'm feeling confident with this. Bring my knee up. Hips dropping back to counterbalance the effect of that rise on the knee. If you're doing this, don't stiffen up in your shoulders. Notice whether you're tightening up if you do that. Just try and develop that sense of confidence in the rooting down. I'm going to change direction. And let's do that once more. You don't have to go straight forwards and backwards. You could go not the diagonal. I'm going to keep going forwards and backwards so I don't go too much off camera. Just use whatever space is available around you. And that can be a useful exercise just to allow your awareness to expand outwards so that it's not just about what's happening within your body. I'm going to change direction again. There's a little bit of a wobble there. That's fine. I'll let my hips drop. I'll put my toes down for a bit of stability and then start again. And then bringing the feet down. If again you're a bit uncertain about this, or if you want to investigate this a little bit more, you could do this exercise side to side. You can do this, and you can have them all at your back. And again, this is an encouragement to really let go. If I start to get that little bit of a wobble, it's like, what happens here? Can I allow myself to drop? And if it doesn't work, I've got the wall behind me to support me. And we gradually learn, we gradually build the confidence in this ability to move down. And that sense of confidence and that ability to return is again, I think, one of the things that will travel with you out of the class. And it's a great benefit to all of us. And it's important to realize that these things are not permanent. There are always things that throw us off center. There are always things that irritate us. There are always bumps in the road that we stumble over, and so on and so forth. And I take great heart from the words of a very well-known, much revered teacher called T.T. Liang, who was based in America. And one day somebody must have said to him about how well balanced he was. And his response was really interesting. He said, I lose balance all the time. I get it back all the time. I don't think he was just talking about physical balance in that sense. I think he was talking about this whole process of coming back. So our final exercise just to come back to this idea of being rooted, of being centered. It's called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. Start by sinking down, push up, arms coming out a bit like the wild goose, but now they go around as though you're going to hold a ball against your chest. Drawing in and then sink your hips down, shoulders follow, your arms follow your shoulders. Resting while your arms come to the sides, and then when you feel the push up, start. And just aware of this process of return. What brings you back to the mountain? Is it an image, an idea, feeling somewhere in your body? What would be most useful to you later in the day when you feel that you need to just find that sense of stillness for a few moments? So when you you feel a bit wobbly on your feet and you want to come back to stability, what will help you the most at that point? One more round. And reinforcing the memory of this studies. Fine. Thank you very much for watching and joining in, everybody. And as always, do feel free to contact me with any questions. Bye for now.
Oh my.